Hello everyone, it's me Itsmebrysonp, and I hope that you are doing well given the current circumstances around the world. Today we're going to be checking out one of my favorite channels again, the Second Thought channel, and it's going to be about the overwork obsession that we have here in the United States. So we're going to get straight into this because I like this channel for the fact that they have good opinions, differentiating opinions. It allows me to give you guys some more of my own thoughts and expressions and ideas on the way that things go, especially with this being a left-leaning channel, although I've come to find out that really our left and right policies and politics, it's a lot different left and right in comparison to other countries. So, here we go.
This episode and others like it are made possible by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. YouTube has demonetized almost all of my recent videos, so if you're able, please consider supporting this channel by becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. The less you eat, drink, and buy books, the less you go to the theater, the dance hall, the public house, the less you think, love, theorize, sing, paint, fence, etc., the more you save. The greater becomes your treasure which neither moths nor rust will devour, your capital. The less you are, the less you express your own life, the more you have, i.e., the greater is your alienated life. The greater is the store of your estranged being. Everything which the political economist takes from you in life and in humanity, he replaces for you in money and in wealth. All passions and all activity must therefore be...
You got to be paying attention straight off the bat because we're 58 seconds in, but not only just 58 seconds, the first 15 seconds was just a lot of, kind of filler. So this is a lot coming out all at once, very quick, just starting off.
Submerged in avarice. The worker may only have enough for him to want to live, and may only want to live in order to have that. These words, penned by Karl Marx in 1844, are no less true today than they were 170 years ago, and nowhere on earth do they ring more true than in the United States. As the wealthiest nation on earth, the U.S. enjoys the privilege of looking down on the rest of the world as, quote, less successful.
Someone who is not very well versed in Marxism or the works and the philosophies of Karl Marx, that's the first time I've heard that whole jumble of knowledge and wordage all together. So for someone who's never actually, really put much effort into learning about it, it's interesting because a lot of those things are true, especially in our society here.
People basking in the light of glorious American exceptionalism. What we fail to realize is that our concept of success is not only narrow and short-sighted, but also fundamentally opposed to human flourishing. Our population as a whole may enjoy more wealth than some of our peer nations, but at what cost? Our waking hours are consumed by work, our life expectancy is on the decline, we rate poorly in metrics like happiness and job satisfaction, and those of us in the workforce today will never achieve the financial stability of our parents' generation. In this episode, we're going to attempt to divorce the notion of success from the dogged pursuit of the accumulation of capital. Let's start with the core belief that animates many American workers, the idea of the American dream. A sort of national ethos, the philosophy of the American dream can be summed up something like this. Everyone has the opportunity for prosperity and success, regardless of their background and based solely upon their ability or achievement. It's very much a pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality.
The American dream, growing up, and the American dream that I've always known, heard, and thought of is always be, you have a nice house, and by nice house, we don't mean a oversized, huge, unnecessary house. I mean like a nice house that, has a good-sized bedroom for each of the kids, a master bedroom that, of course, is much larger than those. You have some nice amenities, you kind of have the luxuries, but it's not absurd and it's not outrageous in price. You have the nice front yard and backyard, so you have just a little bit of land, a little bit of property, not even much, maybe an acre in total for your whole package. And you have that white picket fence, or just that nice, and you have the husband and the wife, and you have the two kids because you got to have a brother and a sister, or you got to have two boys that play on the football team at the local high school. That is what I guess the American dream gets instilled into a lot of us, or what the American dream or what success is supposed to be to a lot of us, at least here in Kentucky and in a lot of places.
A phrase which is also very common in American life. The idea that one should be able to succeed without any external help, solely through one's own force of will and hard work. This notion is, of course, absurd, and is made even more ridiculous by the fact that the phrase has been adopted by so many in a manner completely opposite to its original meaning. To pull yourself up by your own bootstraps is obviously impossible, and that was the original meaning of the phrase, to attempt something that is completely absurd. Of course, in America, nothing is impossible, so we refitted the expression to better suit our dogmatic obsession with self-reliance. America is an interesting case study, because, unlike many other countries, when settlers first arrived here, there seemed to be an endless expanse of land to explore and claim. This frontier lifestyle gave birth to the restless nature of the American dream. One governor noted in 1774 that the Americans forever imagine the lands further off are still better than those upon which they are already settled. He added that, if they attained paradise, they would move on if they heard of a better place farther west. This sums up the American relationship to work pretty well.
So is that kind of where the whole phrase, the grass is, that is that a phrase that you all would know? Surely it is. But the phrase of, the grass isn't always greener on the other side, because everybody always thinks that the grass is nicer on the other side, the other side of the pasture, whatever you want to call it, on the other side of the fence, it isn't always as great as you think it is. We have all heard that, right?
What we have is never enough. We need to accumulate more and more wealth, never satisfied, ever striving. Over the last couple centuries, the American dream has evolved into what we see today. Work hard, save money, send your kids to college so they can live a better life than you did, retire to Florida. In a lot of ways, this is a noble goal. The desire for your children to live a better life than you did is what we should expect of ourselves. But more recently, over the past 50 years or so, the benefits of hard work have been stripped away, and the things older generations took for granted have all but disappeared. Jobs are harder to find and pay far less money than our parents were paid for comparable positions. Pension plans and retirement benefits are rarely offered these days. We have some of the worst vacation and parental leave options in the world. Much of the economy has shifted to gig work, which doesn't have to provide health insurance or any other benefits. And domestic and global perception of the US is on a decidedly downward trajectory. But don't just take my word for it, let's look at a few statistics. Back in the 1960s, only 20% of American mothers worked. This was partly due to the perceived role of the mother as the primary homemaker and caretaker, but it was also largely because most households only needed one source of income to provide a financially stable and upwardly mobile life. Today, 70% of American children live in households where both parents are employed. Most families simply can't get by on a single source of income. At least 134 countries have laws that cap the maximum length of the work week. The US does not. In the United States, almost 86% of men and over 66% of women work more than 40 hours per week.
So where have I been the past few weeks, right? I've been trying to get a part-time job, and I've mentioned it actually a year ago when I first started this YouTube adventure, that I had looked at many times getting part-time jobs or doing other types of work other than just my full-time job in order to have extra money to do things. I have my Scandinavia trip still coming up here in a few months. As of right now, nothing has changed and there's no plans on changing that. However, I have made a change, but that change is more or less, instead of me flying into Billund and then leaving and returning home from Copenhagen, it was a lot cheaper for the plane ticket to just go round trip from Copenhagen to Copenhagen. Much easier, much cheaper. So I did make that arrangement. I am going to get some more arrangements made. I definitely need to get the rest of the arrangements finalized in order to have this trip happen here in a few months. But with all these different things, I've been looking at getting a part-time job. And I've applied, actually, to 3 different places just in the last month and a half. One of them, which is a major retailer, they called me the very next day. I'm talking, I applied at 2200, and they called me the next day at, I think it was 1600, saying, we've got these 3 different positions available. Which one would you like? Here's the pay for all 3. Here's what we have as far as shifts and da-da-da-da-da. This is what I chose, They sent me the offer of employment, and I accepted it. Then got all the information for, drug test, background, blah 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 blah. Fill it all out, and of course, as you would suspect, because I have a criminal history and I have a felony conviction, even though it's from prior years ago, I've not got any reason to not be hired, especially with the current jobs and positions that I have. Nope. Offer of employment immediately rescinded, and not another word from them. That happens multiple times, even now. So, my employer is offering me and allowing me to do a lot of overtime work and work after hours. So that way, not only can we get extra things done at the place where I work, but it's a lot easier on me because I'm not working till midnight every night, trying to make, extra money working a part-time job outside of work. So I've been working a lot of overtime, but here we are. So that was a long explanation. I apologize. Let's get back to the video.
You've probably heard that Japanese workers are some of the most overworked in the world. The average American works 137 more hours per year than the average Japanese worker. We work 260 more hours than the British. We work 499 more hours than the French. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, productivity of the average American worker has increased by 400% since 1950. If we're producing value at 4 times the previous rate, that would mean we could earn a comparable living to our grandparents in 1/4 the work hours, right? Obviously, that's not the case. We're working longer hours at a drastically increased rate of productivity, but we don't benefit from that labor. Well, at least we're rewarded with generous vacation and parental leave. Oh, wait, no. We have the worst rankings in the developed world, and worse rankings than many third world countries. Among 41 studied nations, the US ranks dead last in terms of paid parental leave. We are the only nation out of those 41 that does not mandate some amount of paid parental leave. For comparison, the smallest amount of paid leave required by the remaining 40 nations in the study is about 2 months. 2 months of paid leave in the US is unfathomable.
I will agree with that. I was going to say I've not ever heard of any type of actual paid maternal leave or parental leave, but there are businesses and corporations that do offer payments and will, allow you basically a certain amount of pay while you're off for maternity leave or parental leave or anything like that. However, like he just said, it's only for maybe a month or 2 months, sometimes not even that, and a lot of times not at all.
In 34 of the 41 countries, some of the leave is allocated for new fathers. There's a reason we only ever hear the phrase maternity leave in the US, and that's because new fathers are never eligible for leave in order to spend time with their child. Some countries that rank higher than the US include Mexico, Greece, Croatia, even our fellow workaholic Japan. Estonia offers 86 weeks of paid parental leave. Again, the United States offers nothing. There are 0 industrialized nations on Earth that don't have a mandatory option for paid parental leave, except the US. Vacation and sick time is a similar story. We don't have a federal law requiring paid sick days, nor do we have a law mandating paid annual leave, once again making us the only industrialized nation not to do so. Take a look at this graph. You might notice there's a bar missing. That would be the United States, not mandating any paid leave whatsoever. It's especially depressing when you realize that a McDonald's employee in Norway gets more vacation time than just about any American worker, regardless of field or salary. Meanwhile, in the United States, we abuse our low-paid workers and lambaste them for being lazy and not finding a better job. It's no wonder that our citizens consistently rank poorly for happiness and job satisfaction.
People that work in those jobs, the lower jobs, like fast food workers or any of those entry level, as we would call them, jobs, they try taking vacation time, try taking time off. That is very hard to do, even whenever you're barely making enough hours to begin with a lot of times. But don't ask for a extended amount of time off for vacation or to go do something enjoyable for yourself. That's a very frowned upon thing, even though it's offered and even though it's part of your compensation, it's still frowned upon to ask for that part of your compensation.
They're being worked to death, are not offered any benefits, get no time off, and on top of that are abused for trying to earn a living. What's perhaps more disappointing than wealthy older people deriding low-paid workers is other workers in precarious positions doing the same. For example, take gig economy workers. While some of them are fully aware that their occupation is based on their own exploitation, there's a disappointing subset of people who buy into the notion of, quote, hustle culture. You'll see these people make inspirational Instagram posts, posting images of Jeff Bezos, using hashtags like rise and grind, and going on about how the key to success is to work all day, every day until it pays off. Here's the thing. For these people, it will never pay off. Deifying rich people who accumulated their wealth by exploiting others or inheriting vast sums of money doesn't make you smart, it means you've bought their propaganda. If you drive 15 hours a day for Uber, you might make a bit more money, but you don't have any opportunity for advancement. You're not suddenly going to get health insurance or vacation time because you're working hard. You're a piece of equipment to them. You drive the car, you make them money. That's all you're worth to Uber. But
You drive the car more, you make Uber more money. Yes, you've made more money, but what have you done towards actually achieving that goal or that dream whenever you've now occurred more mechanical maintenance on your vehicle for all the extra hours that you've used driving it? Or the lack of relationship that you have with others because, again, so much driving, or this constant non-stop repetitive work until it pays off. But then you eventually look back and it paid off for what? And then a lot of times that's, again, if it pays off. Because every time you occur more, something ends up happening where that just goes right back to zero. And you start you end up starting over again.
But this toxic idea that we need to give up hours, days, years of our lives as a sort of sacrifice to appease the gods of success is not only misguided, it's actively throwing away your life. Hustle culture destroys your work-life balance, and those who engage in it see themselves as morally superior to people working traditional jobs for a wage. These sorts of false divisions among the working class are exactly what the ruling class wants. The same is true of the false division between the working class and the so-called middle class. It's a meaningless distinction designed solely to make more comfortable workers feel superior to their lower-paid counterparts, and therefore at odds with their own best interests. If you feel superior to others, or see yourself more like the billionaires than your fellow workers, you'll never organize against your oppressors, because you believe you might one day become part of this upper echelon. If you just work a few more hours per week, surely you'll be rewarded and gain entrance into their elite club. America's cult of overwork destroys our collective imagination. It removes every possible motivation beyond the desire for the accumulation of more wealth. To many Americans, there is nothing but work and the possibility of eventual reward.
Now, I will say that does pay off a lot of times. And right now, we are in a state of economy or a state of employment with people that if you could just get someone to show up every day, come to work every day, and just do what you're asked to do. It doesn't matter how good or how slow you're at it, as long as you can do it at the reasonable requirement, then you're practically locked in golden for a job, because they're so spread thin for employment, but yet at the same time, I know many other people personally that have applied for jobs that are open and constantly hiring, but yet they've not received callbacks either for different reasons, or just a multitude of things. But a lot of times it does pay off whenever you have a hard time, you're an employer that's having a hard time getting stuff done and having a hard time retaining employees. So then you end up with an employee that comes along every once in a blue moon who does work their butt off and is trying to do everything you can. They do end up getting rewarded. They do end up getting a bit more benefit out of it. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to become a CEO. That doesn't mean they're going to become franchise owner and everything else. But sometimes they do get rewards out of it. Sometimes they get noticed and they do get a pay raise, or they get more bumped up and they get more seniority. But that's not always the case either, because just as quickly someone else that actually has way more skill comes in and way more capability and gets hired for a position that you were trying to achieve all these years. They get hired straight in because of these qualifications on a sheet of paper.
Work is the only thing that matters. But there is so much more to life than what capitalism has conditioned us to pursue. If we worked fewer hours, we could take time to spend with family and friends. We could learn that hobby we've been putting off for years. We could write novels, produce art, create things that enrich the lives of others on a fundamental human level. We could take time to just exist. When was the last time you just took a day to relax and you didn't feel guilty about it? We are so conditioned to believe that we should always be working that even when we're not working, it's all we can think about. The American dream, the obsession that anyone can, quote, make it if they work hard enough, is thoroughly tangled up with the notion of American exceptionalism. We think it's because we work so hard that we are exceptional. And you know what? We are exceptional. We're the most overworked population on the planet. Our standard of living is going down. Our life expectancy is going down. We don't get vacation days, sick days, or time to spend with our newborn children. We're increasingly unhappy. Our economy is teetering on the brink of the worst financial crisis in modern history. We can't protect ourselves from a pandemic that everyone else handled because we're so conditioned to believe that we always need to be working. Somehow, we still believe that the American dream is a reality. So yes, we are exceptional, but we're exceptional in all the wrong ways. If we don't dismantle the oppressive structures that enable this culture of overwork, this is the only form of American exceptionalism that will ever exist.
Okay, so that was the Second Thought channel, America's Work Over Obsession. Tell me what you think, especially with my own thoughts and opinions and what I told you as far as how my own work is and wanting to work all this extra overtime and just different things. You know, it's definitely a lot different here than it is in your country and where you're from. I'm still going to say I wouldn't know what to do with having the amount of time off that you all have, because that's not something that I'm used to, or that the vast majority of us are used to, having the amount of time off, having weeks upon weeks off. You know, the 2 weeks that I'm going to have off straight, non-stop for me to go to Scandinavia, that's going to be the longest vacation and the most involved vacation that I've ever had. So I can't wait for that to happen, and it's only just a few months away. It's coming up very quick. I hope that you enjoyed this, whatever time it is that you see this. I hope that you have a great night, great day. Stay safe wherever you are in this world. It's me, Itsmebrysonp, and goodbye.